Hi, friends and neighbors, and Motown Martians, which we will be discovering presently. This is your old pal, Eshkalar, the world's greatest Canadian wizard, also Archmage of Cuba, and Paul's of Australia, Mike. And I am the shape that the shamans see as they awaken from the dream time. If you don't know why that's funny. Ho, ho, ho. There's things about the world that you might benefit from knowing. So, anyway, today I'm going to talk about the most important thing that no one thinks is important. I do a lot of that because as an icon of chaos, it is my job to bring awareness to things that lawful people would try to like smooth over in their rush towards the heat death of the universe. So that is the end of law. Think it through. Now, today I want to talk about two things that could be not less quantumly entangled. Right? One is transmogrification, and the other is our old friend, the polar bear. That's right. And these two things should not be attached, but through the agency of man, we have acted as a sort of a glue to tack these two opposing states of existence onto one another in an effort to give them new relevance. You ready for this ride? Because I sure am. All right. First, we'll take transmogrification. In some fields of philosophical study, it's called moksha. It's also called the release from the cycle of reincarnation. It's also called nirvana. Yeah, okay, so this is a change of state so drastic that you would not identify the result with the raw material. So, the most easy to understand is the caterpillar transmogrifies into a butterfly through the medium of the chrysalis. Now, if you put a microphone down there while this caterpillar was being torn apart at the molecular level, you'd probably hear, ah, please make it stop, ah. Which is one reason why we haven't tried it in humans yet, because our microphones would hear that stuff and the press would gather it, you know, pitchforks and torches. So, but the change of state is so drastic that you could barely recognize the end result from its beginning. So that butterfly doesn't look at all like that caterpillar. The amount of change at the molecular level is so profound, it no longer has any association with that earlier form, nor does the crucible in which that exchange, that process took place, mean anything anymore, except as a perch to stand on while you dry your wings. So, I hope you got plenty of food while you're a caterpillar. I don't think you get much more until you mate and die. But still, that's a form of transmogrification. The end result, the butterfly, is so different from its beginning, from its essence, the caterpillar, that the two can scarcely be compared to one another as the same creature. But they are. The difference, of course, is transmogrification. It is the continuation of that caterpillar's existence through another form. And that is what the cycle of reincarnation is. And that is also what transmogrification is. But transmogrification is especially the end of that process, when you have come to a point where you are now released from that cycle of rebirth. You achieve, in some schools of thought, moksha or nirvana. The reason that someone would hold nothingness so valuable as to say it is the end result of the finest and highest in advancement might have something to do with the fact that that philosophy was developed in a place where there isn't much of anything. And so nothing became a virtue. That's moksha. But most moksha isn't like we envision it, that some holy man slumps over and his soul goes on to another plane of existence. That's awfully clean, but there's no modeling for it. Most transmogrification is a more visceral, more painful sort, like the one the caterpillar goes through. Now, I will offer just for a moment another mechanism for you. You seekers, because I know there's a seeker born every minute, might want to know the why of spontaneous human combustion. When you achieve total consciousness, you are aware of your position vis-a-vis the entirety of the universe. You suddenly see the universe as a separate object and not yourself as part of the universe. Well, the universe goes on without you at the speed of expansion, which is in excess of the speed of light. And so to an external observer, it would seem that you, or the holy man, would suddenly accelerate, briefly, at the speed of light, or maybe a multiple of it, and would in so doing vaporize in an instant before the fire even caught his clothes. And the clothes just like slumped back down on the bed. A little pile of ashes. Wow. And that, which some people call spontaneous human combustion, and many doctors say, no, that's putrescine fire and smoking in bed. They all got it wrong. The truth is, those are people who have achieved the ultimate goal of the nihilist religions, release from the cycle of rebirth. They have achieved cosmic awareness and departed from relevance in the cosmic plane. How cool is that? I don't want to do it, but there you go. Now, let's talk about how that takes place the hard and cruel way. If you were a boy, you probably had little plastic army men when you were young. Well, and you might have had a favorite one. This is the one that chases away all the bad guys. That even if their good guys are falling down because them evil Germans is doing it to you, or whoever it was, the Japanese Cobra, name somebody, some entity, and they're shooting at you, and your guys are going down. But in comes your favorite guy, and he just hits everybody with every shot. It's like the Matrix, right? Well, no, the Matrix is when you couldn't hit anything with all those shots. But still, you get the point. So, but he's like, he hits, oh, and 10,000 Germans spin around and run the cream of the 2nd Panzer Division, right? Das Reich. Leaves its Panther tanks and runs for the hills because your guy's just come out with his Tommy gun or whatever. He's your favorite guy. So he's been your favorite guy for 2-3 years, right? And now you like feel like he's part of the family. And one day you go looking for him in the toy box because you got a problem set up there for your favorite heroes to solve, and you can't find him. Where the hell is he? I never put him anywhere except here and in the dirt pile. Where is my... where is... Oh my gosh. Over in the dog bed. There is my favorite soldier. Without a head. Well, if you know anything about dogs, you'll know that that head is on a journey of cosmic proportions. A chemical change is in its future. So, that dog has become a chrysalis for the entity which was once your favorite soldier. And thereby, the soldier goes up, and the soldier goes down, and the soldier goes round, and the soldier goes round. He's less like the soldier you loved every couple of hours. And if that dog farts, you will lose 10 points of affection for that soldier just on the spot. So, eventually, and I'm not a vet, so I can't tell you specifically, but eventually, doggone if that head doesn't come back out of that dog. Yeah, as nature intended, before plastic. And now, that entity is so profoundly changed that you can no longer recognize it. All you want to do is throw it out into the environment again. It has changed its position on the carbon cycle, and it is no longer relevant to you or your life. It has transmogrified. And so, we come to another creature that has to go through the belly of a dog in order to transmogrify. The polar bear. Now, I'm sure you know a lot about polar bears, right? They are the largest terrestrial carnivore. There's nothing like a polar bear. Tiger, pride of lions, polar bear could probably take them on if it was hungry. And would not scruple against eating them while it's killing them. So, anyway, polar bear is a big carnivore. I think they grow well over 1,000 pounds. So that's big. And a polar bear needs a lot of food. But human impact has changed the whole ecology of the north where the bears live. That's right. We've killed off the whales, we've killed off the seals, we have killed off the caribou, and we have killed off the moose. And we didn't mean to do it. We're sorry. Rich people built lodges and killed them all for fun. But anyway, now those polar bears don't have much to eat. And their regular cycle, which is during breeding season or during birthing season, they follow the caribou mothers and they follow the moose mothers into their little hideaways, and they attack and they eat the babies. And that is a huge source of nourishment for these big terrestrial carnivores. I didn't know about this. I had to study on it to find out something about it. And went, whoa. So the nuts and berries yuck, that's the rest of the year when you can't get anything big and juicy and savory. And that's how a bear lives. Between those big glory moments of eating that moose baby, oh, nom, 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 nom. Maybe getting some mama too, she doesn't get away quick. So, oh, and there are battles that go on about this, let me tell you. But the point being that now that there aren't so many caribou and there aren't so many moose and there aren't so many seals and the ice is melting and the seals that are left are receding, right, in order to stay away from killer whales. So now the polar bears have to find alternate sources of food. There is a place on Earth where they can find that food. It is a mystical, wonderful land that you should visit someday. It is called Anchorage, Alaska. It's not the capital. I asked the girl one time. I said, do you know the capital of Alaska? She says, Anchorage? I says, nobody gets my jokes. So, in this lovely, beautiful, fabled town of Anchorage, where every person is beautiful and strong and the kids are all above average, thanks, Garrison, there is a thing called a garbage dump. Well, there's more than one. And like every other city on Earth, humans produce a prodigal amount of garbage in their cities. Wow, much more than we would produce if we were strung out. There's an argument to be made that you can't get to make any more because they pay people to shut you down. That's truthfully. We don't need to live in cities. That's just so that people can own smaller bits of property and make more profit off them. That's all that is, building vertically to make profit. So anyway, in the city, there's a prodigal amount of garbage produced every day. And guess where they put it? Well, they send it out to a dump. And that dumps out away from the city, so you don't have to smell it. But guess who can smell it? Polar bears. That's right. And that polar bear who's been looking for caribou, can't find it. Looking for moose, can't find it. Looking for seal, can't find it. Looking for penguins, you won't find no penguins in the Northland, though. Can't find anything to eat. But it smells that garbage and it goes, oh, there is a fabled land of things that are going off. Things that have been thrown out of refrigerators. Things that have been tossed out of cars on the way by. Things that have been swept up on town cleanup. Just waiting for me to eat them. And so the polar bear wanders into the dump. I mean, it goes some distance. They have good noses. And it wanders into the dump and it says, oh man, what does a polar bear do in a garbage dump? There's a video clip I saw on fabled YouTube about a polar bear in a dump in Anchorage, Alaska, which is where this thought first came to me. And that polar bear is looking at the camera, but the polar bear has a Miracle Whip jar on its muzzle, big one. And so you see the polar bear and the Miracle Whip jar, and then you see this big pink tongue just fill the whole front of the screen as it licks out that Miracle Whip inside the rest of that jar. And this bear is having the most fun it could possibly have. Look, there's French fries, and there's it's McDonald's, it won't go bad. There's burger on the ground, all this stuff. So bear's having fun. But now here comes Indian Joe, and Indian Joe is got the whole back of his bed full of dead minks because they all got the mange, and he's going to throw them in the dump there where he's not allowed, but do any humans ever observe proper garbage management. No, this whole problem is because of that. Yeah, causes transmogrification in the going through the belly of a dog fashion. So he's bringing them minks. They got to be dumped somewhere, right? They want to dump them wherever he can, and he goes to dump them there, and he realizes when he drops the bed, he's looking at a polar bear, and that polar bear, like, loses interest in that mayonnaise jar, and looks up at that human being. You know, polar bears are specialists in eating big, warm-blooded animals. You know, what's a man look like to that polar bear? Exactly. So that man jumps back in that truck, starts it up, and drives off. Now, there's video of this. You can find it if you use the right keywords. There's video of a polar bear chasing a man into his truck, and he drives away with the polar bear in pursuit in a dump outside of Anchorage, Alaska. So this story is absolutely true, but here comes the twist. Here comes the moksha, the removal from the cycle of rebirth that polar bear is going to undergo, but not in the good part, not spontaneous bear combustion, earthine combustion. Instead, it's going to go through the belly of a dog, and let me tell you how that happens. See, Anchorage has criteria. They have a procedure in place for this kind of event. Indian Joe calls the police. The police go, there's a polar bear up at dump 5, Sector R. Some young policeman goes out there and he calls the game warden. He says, hey, can you come out? We got a bear problem. And the warden goes, yeah, let me get my rifle. And they go out there and the game warden aims he opens up the chamber on his bolt action rifle, and he puts a dart in there. A little dart, right? These are air rifles, I think. And he closes that up, and he levels the rifle across the windowsill of the car, right at the bear's shoulder, and he goes, puck! And that bear was just minding his own business. He didn't get a piece of Indian Joe, which he really wanted. But he's got half-frozen French fries, and he's going at it, and plunk, something pinches his shoulder. He looks at it, he goes, what the? I'll just picture yourself on a boat on a river, splat. And he goes over, poleaxed, because that dart has some pretty good animal trank in it. Now, you're not a druggie, I hope, but if you are, you know that people abuse some animal tranks because of their effects. I'm not going to go into that here because I don't do that stuff anymore. I don't do any, no, I'm just kidding. So anyway. So that bear goes over, boom, it's laying there in the dump, and the cop and the game ranger, they get out there and they roll it over on its back so the ranger can give it the two-finger treatment. I'm not allowed to say what that's called because YouTube won't let me post this video if I do. But in some cultures that would be considered a sex act. And perhaps in the Alaskan culture it is too. You would have to talk to the ranger yourself and get his play on it. But anyway, after a good bit of that, they tag the bear's, they tag the bear's ear. They do that little finger bangy thing, and then they drag him up on the back of the truck, and they close the gate, and they drive him across 100 miles of tundra. Believe me, no level roads up there. And they drop him off in the middle of nowhere. And they get back in the vehicle, and they drive back to Anchorage, Alaska, because there's warm there, and there's probably coffee or beer or something that game wardens and policemen might like and share the interest in. So that bear has now been introduced to what Carlos Castaneda would have said, a separate reality. You see, that bear thought he was just going to get dinner. But he got dinner, a show, he got mashed, he got taken on a thrill ride and dumped in the middle of nowhere. Any of you hookers out there sweating already? Yeah, I am too. So, that's for people that love the Rocky Horror Picture Show. If you don't get it, it's okay. Someday you will. So anyway, That's what the whole point of the song Time Warp is about, in case you didn't know. So anyway, uh, this bear gets tranked, dragged, thrown across the tundra, dropped on the ice. Now it's left alone. Now it comes to 5, 6, 8 hours later. It's been tripping balls the whole time. Animal tranks do that. You get like whoa off them. So uh, don't do them, kids. That's no way to die. There are really good ways to die. Most of them involve being very old and very successful. Back to my story. So that bear, first thing it does is it looks at itself in the ice mirror and it says, never again. Never, never, oh, don't even talk, it's too loud. So now the bear goes through a couple days and a couple days, and about a week passes and he's thinking about that garbage dump again. He's thinking like, there's no caribou out here. I can't find a seal. I can't find an Eskimo or a Yakut or an Inuit. Wow. So, I gotta have something to eat. I gotta have a little something going, you know what I mean? So he heads for that place he remembers, that place that smells like garbage. Anchorage, left. I mean the dumps. Sorry, outside of any major human city or habitation, and it just happens to be Anchorage, Alaska, in this particular case. And that bear goes back, thinking that the same thing's going to happen because he's been what we call in science habituated. So it thinks it's going to go. It's going to eat cold French fries and scare the natives, maybe get a native, but probably scare the natives off. And then like the nice man's going to get them all high. And like, have a little fun with his nether end there, and then drag him out in the car and take him out in the middle of nowhere and dump him again. Woo woo, that's getting to be a lifestyle. So the bear is like, yeah, it's been a week. He's forgotten he said never again. He's like strutting on down there to that garbage dump again. And doggone, there's Indian Joe. Indian Joe, the mink business isn't going very well right now for him. So, he said, I guess Pete is after him with, I don't know, pellet guns or something. But so Indian Joe looks at that polar bear, and that polar bear looks at Indian Joe, and they're looking at each other. And the polar bear's going, wasn't there a thing on the eat the warm mammal? Goes for Indian Joe. Indian Joe back in the truck. He looks like an Olympic event. Now, I mean, he won. He won the sled race, not the big one, the small one. So anyway, he's out, going on the horn, calling the police. Come back, and the police, of course, that same bear. Oh my gosh. So the policeman doesn't have to call the ranger this time, except to identify the body, because see, Anchorage has a program. It has a program for removing a bear that comes and eats garbage the first time. You drug it, you drag it off, you dump it. If it's stupid enough to come back the second time, you don't tell the bear this, it just finds out by accident. Then the cop brings his own rifle, which is the 30-30, and he pulls back the bolt and he puts in that, full metal jacket round, and he takes a bead and he drills that bear right to the center of his forehead. And the bear thought this was a thing. What changed? Well, this is transmogrification. The bear has gone from being something that everybody identified as being a certain thing and accepted, and it was important. But because of a human agency and the human perception, that bear went through like that army man's head did, the colon of a dog, in order to come out the other side just to be on another spot on the carbon cycle. Now, if you postulate that bear has a soul, that bear's soul is now free to find another corpus, another existence, another cycle, another spin, or perhaps it's been released. Because really, gotta ask, if that's how you were treated, who'd want to go back? This is your old pal Eshkalar, talking about transmogrification and polar bears, and why you should consider human impact a lot more than you usually do. Ha! You're on the 9th of May, 2026. Oh, I love being pedantic. I'm just as clueless as anyone else. But I do say what I mean.